Hey guys.
I can. Yes.
Okay.
I'm Ute.
I'm going to do it like you do it. Hello and welcome everybody on the CAYACast. Today we are joined by Ute Hermanus and we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Radio playlisting, kind of how Ute got into the industry. If you ever need a blueprint for how to do that. We talk a lot about things like hard work, how much work it takes to get into radio, and also Brad's here. I'm dirty, by the way, but we're not that important. We're just, you guys know us. So thank you so much, and let's get into the episode. Wow!
Can I also try and do one?
Yes, you
go for it.
You're welcome to do it. Basically,
I've always wanted to do one of these.
I just shot the shit at Brad because that's how I always does it.
Go for it. Do your thing.
Okay, I'm gonna do my thing. So I say, hey everyone. I always wanted to do this.
You can intro it however you want. Welcome to the CAYACast. Brad, Durant, Ute, we talked about, and your like highlight things that we talked about.
Okay. I don't know what I'm going to say. Whatever's going to come out of my mouth is going to come out of my mouth. But like, hey everyone, I'm Ute, the fab friend that summer seems to be at the Kaya studio all the time these days. But I mean, like, you know, what did you say? Open door policy. Open door policy. So it's always a vibe. And I'm here, which means that you should probably be smiling already. Great conversation, but we dived into how I got into radio. So if you've ever wondered how, you know, you wanted like a little sneak peek into like the radio industry from someone that's learning, this is definitely what you should be watching. But at the same time, we just kind of got into real talk. We got really deep. I won't lie. We got deep because being in the creative industry is hard. There's some setbacks, but it's a roller coaster. Yeah. Fun things, downfalls, but it's what you make out of it. And then we also spoke about politics because, I mean, I do have a master's in politics, but there's a whole lot of different things and it was a fun chat.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Get involved. Actually, let's kick it straight off. We were talking about Dury liking the sound of his own voice. Oh, firstly, you know what you just did?
What?
You said doo-doo.
Oh,
on camera.
But you know about the sounding of their own voice and the voice note thing? There's someone on my WhatsApp, right? Yeah. And in their bio, it says, no voice notes, please.
Whoever that person is, I owe them a slab, maybe a beer, definitely a hug, because that is an awesome idea.
Do you know what though?
It says a lot and you've got to be respectful.
Yeah. It says in my WhatsApp bio that I'm bad on WhatsApp, and if people urgently need me, they must phone me. And the amount of times people will send me like a WhatsApp after hours and then get bleak that I don't see it the next morning.
Yeah.
It's in my bio.
I send messages after hours because I have the weirdest time.
But it's just like when people do it urgently, like just phone me. I'm happy to deal with it.
So can someone call you like after hours?
Like, nah.
But if it's urgent.
But like, what if my urgent and your urgent are two different things?
Well, that's something that I want to get into. Work-life balance in the creative industry, or when you don't have a traditional work day.
In radio.
And I imagine you've had some experience with this as well. So that was actually a great segue into what we want to get into. How, for context for the people, and then we'll get into that question, explain how you got into radio and where you are now to the degree to which you are able to say so.
Like long story or short story?
Succinct but comprehensive.
Comprehensive. Okay. So fun fact is that when I was 18, I ended up being one of the 7 girls to go to KFM for a day. And that was so cool because it was like this whole introduction to radio. So I didn't really know what to expect other than the fact that like when you hear the radio, you'll just hear voices and you're in the car, but you have no idea how studio actually looks like and all of the things that go behind it. So it was a beautiful introduction. But I didn't really have enough confidence to pursue radio or even think that like one day I'm going to be a radio presenter, let alone being signed as a new talent to Good Hope FM. And that's like pretty cool. But then I still remember that at the end of that day, they had asked like, so who wants to be a radio presenter one day? And everyone, like all the other 6 girls, they lifted their hand and I didn't because I didn't think I could. And then like the next year, I got to be on TV for a little bit with a super cool internship at Hectic 99. And that was amazing. Like, that's how you know you love what you're doing when work doesn't feel like work, you know? And then I finished my first degree. And then at the end of that, I was like, let's get into campus and community radio. And that's when I started at MFM. So I really just tried to be consistent, and like I developed more confidence behind the mic, if anything. So I found my confidence through radio, which is so interesting, from like when I was 18 and I was like, I don't think I can do this. And like, will I be good enough? And I worked really hard, and then COVID happened, but then I just came back with a bigger bang. So I started doing more interviews on my own instead of with a co-host. And I just fell in love with radio even more, especially like the music industry. And then like last year, I decided, okay, cool, let's do the campus DJ search for Good FM. And I wasn't going to do it. And 3 people literally said, Ute, you should enter. And you know, like how the universe kind of just aligns and you're like, okay, cool, I guess it's meant to be. And I did it. I didn't win, but then they still called me and I got signed as a new talent. And it's kind of like a short story, long story into how I got into radio.
That was both comprehensive and succinct. So
I mean, that's how you know I'm a radio presenter. Economical with words.
Yeah, it was a good job. Yeah, we started talking based, I think the first thing we chatted about was around dear Will Dinley. Shout out to Will Dinley. And
really cool.
you did with him. But you have, in quite a short space of time, when did you start doing music interviews or interviews with musicians?
Music interviews.
Because I know the first couple of those were formative, but have informed things going forward. So when did you start doing those music interviews?
Let me think.
I'm also just going to rudely move your mic slightly.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, look, the first interview I actually started doing was probably when I got lunch at MFM, which was something I'd always wanted to. When I had started at MFM, I had like Sunday breakfast. So I skipped the whole graveyard shift, and that was pretty cool. So I didn't have to wake up like from 1 to 4 in the morning. Although Sunday at 5, it's still a lot, but we do it because we love what we do, right? Yeah. And then I think about at the end of 2020, I started getting into music interviews. So I did a few with like big artists from Johannesburg, but at that time I had a co-host, and that was more just before COVID had started. And then, you know, COVID kind of happened. And then I remember I did a couple with like local artists on campus, you know, students who are just pursuing their love for music. And then I remember Majosi was like my first solo, like bigger interview, if you get what I'm saying. But then the following year, that's when things really got interesting. So then it started as well with me connecting with Neon Dreams, and they were like the most amazing people ever. I literally loved them. And then I ended up being like the first in-person interview in South Africa, which was pretty cool because I mean, I was at MFM, it's a campus and community station. You'd think a bigger station would, you know, land that first in-person interview. But I'm so glad that happened because I got to meet them and they really are so amazing. And then it kind of just led to a whole lot more music interviews, from like a few international interviews to even interviewing Shekinah, and she's so amazing. Like I don't know if you know her music.
We're familiar, don't worry.
I'm glad. And a new album, I love it too. And then Will Dinley was also someone I interviewed towards the end of the year, and that interview in itself touches my heart on so many like levels, just because I've had the opportunity to meet so many people through radio, but he was just very different because it was the first time that, you know, like I got to actually chat to someone who released like their first ever single. It's like that pinch myself moment, like, oh my gosh, did I really do this? Did I really just release my first single? It's actually happening. And the way that he even like explained his story and just doing these things and connecting with more artists just made me fall further in love with the music industry, because there's so much more than just that song that they put out there. But, you know, there's the thought processes, the self-doubt, the story behind the song, and, you know, like how it also just leads to more personal growth for themselves, and just the way that they express themselves is through music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unrelated, but Neon Dreams blue ticked us. Well, blue ticked me.
Really?
Yeah.
In what context?
On Instagram or on WhatsApp?
Well, Instagram, which is understandable because I don't have a WhatsApp, but I wanted to get an international act for Chasing Stages.
I remember we messaged him about that. That's fine. We won't take it personally.
I'm sure it wasn't intentional. They are so busy,
Yeah,
and they
I know.
always try to connect with as many people as they possibly can.
Well, they don't need to do anything. They just need to have us follow them around for a day.
Yeah, that's the goal. Just let us follow you around.
But I mean, I don't know how that's going to happen. They're not even in the country at the moment. So, maybe later in the year, I don't know if they do reply to you eventually.
I don't know.
Fine, Dory's clearly not salty
I'm
about
not
it.
salty. It's fine.
What would you say? Was there ever an interview, if you can talk, that you were like starstruck in, where it was someone who, or not even starstruck, but just someone who like surprised you in the way that you perceived them, or the way that, do you know what I mean? Starstruck's maybe oversimplistic, but
the first thing that came to my mind when you asked me this question was last year. I was still at MFM. And for the day, there were these little kids. I think they were like grade 3 and grade 4 from this private school in Franschhoek. I forgot the name. I just know it's a private school. And they came to studio for the day just to see what radio was all about. And there was this little girl, and she literally asked me, so, how many famous people have you met? Like, have you ever gotten starstruck? And, like that's the first thing that came to my mind when you asked me that question. And my exact response was, no, I haven't.
Okay.
And it's so interesting just because whenever I meet someone and I have to do an interview with them, and I don't call them interviews, for me, it's just like this fun chat.
Yeah.
Because I'm meeting you for the first time and we're connecting over what we both love talking about. And it's just like a chat. So to me, it's just a normal person. There isn't anyone necessarily, but I do think one of the most nerve-wracking interviews where I maybe like thought a lot more about the entire interview was when I had to interview Alan Windy for Youth Day. And that was just different since it's like a political interview kind of. And, you've got to be careful with what you say since you're on radio. And, you don't want to get too political, but you also have to talk about like relevant topics. Yeah. So it was probably like a series of political interviews that I had to do because I even interviewed the EFF. And then I had to interview another political party. I believe it's the Cape Independence. And this was just interesting because I have a master's in political science.
Oh, okay.
So this was cool.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to Starstruck, I would probably align it more to outside of radio.
Okay.
Yeah. So not actually radio in itself and the people. It's more like, let me think. Last year I did a lot of things. I really have to think about all of this.
Fast-paced life right there.
You gotta live life like an adventure.
Yeah, well, things are happening.
You only live once.
Ride the wave. Why not?
Right. Last year I got this amazing opportunity where I was selected to be one of the 100 leaders of tomorrow for the Gallen Symposium. So it's a big deal because they only take 100 postgrads globally. Due to COVID, couldn't fly to Switzerland, which is disappointing. Who does another fully paid trip to Switzerland for for a week? Yeah, right?
Just in case anyone was COVID's really just...
It really did. 3 trips to Europe cancelled last year, but more beautiful things happened in the time that those trips didn't come to be.
Those trips will happen.
Eventually. Yeah. But it was when I then got invited by the Swiss embassy in Pretoria to be like a guest of honor and speaker. And that kind of had me starstruck and very I was quite nervous. It was nerve-wracking. And for the first time I was like, oh my gosh, am I saying the right thing? I don't know. How am I going to present this? I need to narrow this down. Because it was also being streamed globally. So all of these international delegates were watching. And I mean people from the UN, big people. And I was like, okay, Ute, you've got this. So that was probably the starstruck.
What was the biggest learning that you took away from that experience after speaking at such an important thing? And
that I'm Ute Hermanus and I really can do anything.
I love that.
Love
it.
That's
love
everything is in the name.
Sheesh.
You can't spell cute without Ute, but it's Ute Hermanus. A radio presenter, super chatty, showering you with sunshine. But at the same time, I'm very much capable of speaking on an international platform. So to make a difference like that is also really cool because the whole purpose of that symposium is to talk about issues that are prominent and how you can really resolve it. And so not just chatting about it, but coming up with viable solutions. And then like after that, I just thought to myself, I love that I do radio and that's definitely my passion, like radio and media. But I'm so glad at the same time that I did study politics because it really invited me and challenged me, if anything, also to think outside of the box, to look at things from different perspectives. So if there's like an issue, I'm not just going to look at it from like my perspective, but I always try to understand it from multiple perspectives because there's so many different views. But how important like symposiums like that are too, because youth don't necessarily have the platforms or as many platforms as they should to really, you know, speak and have their opinions really recognized and appreciated. And I think, you know, like being part of that was definitely cool. And I hope to see more of those things in the future and to be part of more of those types of conversations.
What do you think there's an intersection or a common element or because
about the radio
politics
and the politics
and radio and music are, you know,
like
not things
public
that
voice.
traditionally
represent, like you're like a representative.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's definitely common threads from that perspective. But what for you is there anything that connects the two?
This is a question I get so often, and I always say like I feel like when you meet me and after like talking to me for a little bit, you'll probably realize I'm a very unconventional person. I don't do anything the right way. I always do it in my own little unique way. But I guess it's like my name, you know, it's Ute. The Ute way. And you have a Ute day, a Ute way. I like
Love
that.
it.
We're on the same WhatsApp group.
You.
I won't blue tick you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I won't blue tick.
Look at me. It's fine.
The other day, a couple of days ago, we literally sent a voice note that was almost exactly the same length at the same time about the same stuff. Like, what time are we going to... I was like, cool, what time? Can we do the afternoon? Can we do 4:30? Just because of load shedding, you just sends me, okay, well, I'm not sure about like how the load shedding is going to affect all of this, but can we do like 4 o'clock? We were on the same page.
And then as he was replying to my voice note, I actually listened to his, and then he was like, well, you know, my voice note's kind of irrelevant because you just answered everything. It's all details. I'll get back to you soon. And I was like, no, I listened to your voice note.
and then we just confirmed what we.
And there was just simple messages today, and he was like, cool, this time, cool.
I can literally see the same wavelengths, like.
Two minds think alike. How does the saying go? Great minds think alike?
Great minds think alike. That's the one.
Thanks for including me in that.
You're welcome.
But you were still asking me about how those three different elements connect. Unconventional, and I think that you can do anything you want to do. Like the world is filled with opportunities. Like I found my confidence through radio. There's definitely more that I want to explore in the media space as well, because I love creating content and I love adventures. Like I said in the very beginning, like life should be lived like an adventure. And I often romanticize my life as I should, because it's my life and I've got to make
main character moment
always. And you got to make it the most beautiful life that you can live with the ups and the downs. So radio is cool because that's how I definitely know that that's what I want to do. Because even while I was studying was so hard. Similar to like Will, you know, how he's also so open about like studying something and like pursuing your passion. And it's very challenging because there was a time, and I actually haven't really spoken to people about this, but I, for the first time ever, actually even considered that I wanted to drop out of doing my master's just because it wasn't something that I wanted to pursue anymore. And I felt like it was taking me away from my degree. But I'm also that type of person that finishes everything that I start as. Like, you can't. You do so much. You do so well. So kind of like a superwoman at the end of the day. Like I bagged 3 degrees at 24 while doing radio, and then at the same time being signed to a commercial station. So that's pretty cool. And in terms of like my degree, I have no idea where that fits into the picture in the future. But I'm sure somewhere along the line, you know, the paths will align.
Well,
right now, I'm not sure.
Already, you know, just being able to be a radio interviewer who can interview politicians, but you have a politics degree. That's already really... And
that
in a country where we need to have so much more discourse around politics and like real discourse around politics, that's invaluable.
That is a very challenging thing because I do study politics, which means I've got burning questions. Like I want to actually ask you, I want to get into the detail, but you can't do that. Like there's certain things, you know, maybe don't get too political, stay clear from that, like in terms of like an actual radio interview. Yeah. But outside of that, you get to challenge those thoughts. So I feel like I also really made the most of my degree while I was studying, because I
Okay.
didn't just study. Like I got to do like leadership, which at the time I felt like was just something I needed to do. And I felt on my heart like, okay, cool, I want to pursue this. So I did the whole Haka thing, Vice Prim thing. But I always try to be engaged and active on campus because I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I want to know what's happening. I want to know why it's happening. I want to know what I can do, and just also to learn more, because at the end of the day, you can never know too much. I mean, I have 3 degrees, like a BA in internationals and in international studies, and then an honors in political science and masters in political science. I learned a lot,
Yeah.
but I'll still say I don't feel like I know everything. If anything, now that I know quite a decent amount, I feel like I know nothing at all. And that's how I know I'm learning.
It's that age-old thing of the more you know how little you know.
Exactly. But I really did the most. Like I even got involved with the international office at the university, and that was so cool because then I got to meet so many international students. I got to be like a student assistant for BRICS, which is so cool. And another international conference. And then I did a summer school abroad in Germany. So like, and then like last year, the St. Gallen Leaders of Tomorrow thing. Like, so I feel like if I needed to pursue politics and everything I kind of wanted to do in that line and like the goals that I'd set for that, I achieved while I was studying.
Okay.
And then the masters gave me like the opportunity to really explore radio more, because it's, I don't have classes while I'm doing my master's degree. It's kind of like you sit when you have to sit with your work, and that's really difficult. Because like I'll always say, my timetable went as such. I had lunch, which was from 12 to 3 at MFM. And then I do that. But before that, I'd obviously have to wake up earlier because you've also got to prep for your show. You can't just like go in and be like, hey, I'm Ute. And look, I don't know what I'm going to talk about today, but I had a really bad day. You don't want to know about my bad day. And you just sprinkle some sunshine onto your day. It's like the X factor, you know, the sunshine, the smiles, it's infectious. But then after that, I'd obviously have to stick around maybe sometimes for more radio things or admin. And then like, obviously you have your own personal things that you have to deal with and do. And then like, let's say by 10 p.m., that's when I would actually sit with my thesis.
Okay.
So from like 10 p.m. and some days to like from 10 p.m. to like 6 a.m. in the morning, I would work on my thesis. So like when everyone else was sleeping, I had to work on my thesis while managing that radio, and then also getting this really cool feature called Cape Town After Dark, which I currently do for Good Hope as well.
It was about.
Yeah,
that was my next
were you gonna
question.
get in
But
that?
anyways, it's fine.
I'm glad you see we in sync. I'm leading you into what you want to ask. Get into it.
Guys,
Ask me.
I can leave. Eh?
it's okay.
I know you have questions, which we're also going to get
Three's
into.
a party though, so don't leave.
My headphones
I also
are
won't
not
blue
loud
tick you
enough.
either.
Pardon?
I'm not blue ticking you.
Okay.
You're very much present in this conversation.
I'm having fun this day.
So, I mean, yeah, you segued into it nicely. Explain, well, actually, yeah, where did the concept for Cape Town After Dark come from?
What is Cape Town After Dark?
Yes,
That
for
is a
everyone.
very
I'm in the dark.
important.
Yes,
That is
yeah.
a very important conversation and question, to be honest. Cape Town After Dark is the feature, right? So it takes place every Tuesday at 21:40. Look at me promoting my feature. Cape Town After Dark, Good Hope FM, Ute Hermanus on Night Live, hosted by
Tuesday,
Celeste Anthony.
21:40.
You know the deal.
You know what to do. So the whole purpose of it is to, like, if you think about it, you're going out with your friends in the evening, right? You want to go out, but the idea of where to go puts you off because you don't actually know where to go. And you don't always want to go to the same bar or the same restaurant. It gets boring after a while. So Cape Town After Dark's purpose is really to clue you in with where you can actually go in and around Cape Town. And I like doing that because, like I say, adventure is what I'm all about.
It's like your old school gig guide. Oh.
Right? But old school infused with like the Ute
Yeah.
element, I suppose.
I like it.
You know? Right? It's doing really well, believe me. And it's fun because there's so many places that you actually look past, or like there are places maybe that you do know about and you're like, oh, I don't know that I could, like, I'm like, my example, because I told you about it the other day as well, was like Cafe Caprice, right?
Yeah.
We all know it. Sundays.
Go on a Sunday.
Vibe, right? But did you know that you can go on a Tuesday and then you get like a 2-for-1 burger special?
No, you do.
Now it's a Friday.
You
No,
see,
you
and
do.
You know what I'm
Fridays.
doing on Tuesday.
And like,
So,
and it's just an example. Like on Fridays, you can get like half price bubbly. Like I'm saying, like
okay.
they're like places that you may know about, but you don't actually really know everything else that it entails, or maybe a day that you'd like prefer, or like there's like this really cool bar that has like a graffiti staircase and a graffiti bathroom. I think it's in Short Market Street, Holyoke. Yeah, these are Cape Town After Dark spots. So I always try to find like unique things in each place. And the best part is that I didn't grow up in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And like, it's more adventurous for me to do this because I get to experience Cape Town in a new way. Not that I didn't visit often, like I did, but you know, like if you're not from the place, you tend to go to specific places or you go where your parents go.
Yeah.
And Cape Town After Dark also gives me like this cool opportunity, not only to share places where people can go and check out with their friends, date nights, solo adventures, which I really recommend you do, but I get to experience Cape Town in a new way because I'm also like discovering it. So there's a new sense of like excitement that I bring to it. Because sometimes you can live in Cape Town and you kind of take for granted the fact that you live in a beautiful city because you grew up here. It's like same thing, different day.
That was a Slack notification. Don't worry about it.
So like, yeah, like that's what Cape Town After Dark's like purpose is at the end of the day. But you wanted to know how it started.
Yeah, like what was the impetus behind it? You know, what initiated it?
So I started a thing called Gem of the Week at the time where I was just showcasing places that you can go to because I've always loved adventures and finding places and things like that. And it was just something I did loosely. It wasn't necessarily anything serious. But then at the time, Celeste, to the like feature, like the show takes place on Celeste show, she was actually the person who trained me for radio and recruited me at MFM. So it's kind of like a full circle moment. The fact that she had asked me to do this feature for her on a show, which she called Cape Town After Dark.
Okay.
So then I got to do Cape Town After Dark and she's like, she needs someone who will be consistent, hardworking, but also like, you know, loves adventure. And she asked then, Ute, can you do it? And I was like, wow. And the thing is, she was like, she wants to go back to MFM because she also came from MFM. And she had asked the people that were working at the time, like the managers, like who at MFM would be the best for this. And both of them were like, Ute. Okay, and they were like, cool. Ute's basically like the mini you. So, I mean, I take that as a compliment because Celeste is really hardworking and she has a like big passion for radio. So to pursue that and do it with her was really cool, but it was daunting at the beginning. And I think I even told her this once because it's like Celeste and, you know, imagine someone training you, recruiting you. And, you know, like then they ask you to do something for them and you're like, are you sure it should be me? Do you think I'll do a good job? And I was like, no, Ute, she wouldn't have asked you if you couldn't do it. And then I just like started developing Cape Town After Dark further. So it was just meant to be like 3 places. I'd tell you where to go. I didn't necessarily have to take pictures, post about it. And then I just like enhanced it the Ute way, the Ute standard. And it is what it is. Like now you'll see reels, like the voiceovers on top of the reels, the TikToks. If anything, someone actually told me, are you the Susu girl? And Susu's like the new bubble tea spot in the Waterkant. Just because they saw my reel.
No.
Are you the Susu girl?
I mean, it's a good assumption.
It's a lovely assumption. I'm glad you're paying attention.
Yeah, clearly.
And then other people are like, you, so I just like look at what you go, or where you go, what you do, then I like save it. They don't like it. They save it.
What do you think? Well, actually, by the sound of it, that's better for the algorithm at the moment in any case. So shout out to the homies who are saving reels. By the way, if this is a reel, save it. Thank you.
Now we have to make it a reel.
Yeah, now we have to make it a reel.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to make it a reel?
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, no, good point. Jared,
we have the biggest smile here.
You got it. What do you think, and this is a question that I'm very interested to get your perspective on. Radio is one of the oldest forms of communication technology, as especially broadcast communication technology. And fundamentally, the technology hasn't changed, can't by virtue of what it is. And with all of the evolutions in communication, digital communication, and distribution, what role do you think radio plays that's kept it as relevant as it has? And how long do you think that's going to last?
You know, the first thing that came to my mind, radio isn't abandoning you during load shedding now, is it? Think about it.
You know what? Yeah, so all the digital communication in the world means jack shit if you don't have power. So
just hop in the car and just
But radio is there through thick and thin. Radio is there during COVID. Radio is there during hard lockdown. When you're going through a breakup and you get into your car, what's playing? The radio. If you don't have a streaming app, your phone is dead. Who's there? Radio.
CDs.
See, do you even still have a
I
CD
have like a
player?
one CD for when my phone is dead.
When things are really, really dark.
Desperate.
when things have absolutely just gone wrong.
But you know what? Like, I think radio will be around for as long as, you know, people need it. Because at the end of the day, like, we don't always all have friends. And the reason I like radio and why I pursue it is the fact that you get to connect with so many people. I may not personally know you, but we're connecting on a level where if you get into your car and I'm behind the mic, we are conversing. I'm keeping you company. I'm putting a smile on your face. And sometimes you can be going through a lot and just having that person, you're not physically seeing them, but through the airwaves, and they're like saying like, look, so I had an awkward moment. I walked through into a glass door. It's so silly for me to say that, but it really happened to me. And you're going to laugh in your car and you're like, oh, you know what? Me tripping in front of my crush wasn't even a big deal. Like, at least I didn't bump into a glass door. Like, oh my gosh, she bumped into a glass door and I tripped. Like, it happens, you know, we're human. And, you know, you have these jokes, bands, but radio is also such an important platform because it's where you get to connect with people, but you can also have important conversations because like you get commercial radio, but there's also talk radio where you get to dive into more like politically orientated topics. You get to dive into mental health. It depends on what it's all about and like the show and all of those things. But radio serves a purpose that sometimes people don't really realize because it's the same, like you can see something in one way, but without you realizing it, there are like multiple other avenues and like things that radio actually does to assist other people. I mean, you get advertisements on radio as well. Radio gets to help people, like even during COVID. Like, I mean, I even did it at MFM as well. And I mean, that's why I started Gem of the Week too. And I incorporated into radio was just to assist small businesses that were like really struggling or didn't necessarily have as much feet because people were scared. And that Cape Town After Dark, yes, it tells you where to go, but it's also good exposure in its own way because it can help a small business too. Yeah. Even if it's like, just like, hey, listen, so if you are hungry, it's winter, it's cold, and you want to go somewhere, but you want to make it worth your time. You don't want to be outside. You want to be warm. You want to feel cozy. Then check out this spot. Yeah. And, you know, maybe try this or that. And, you know, like, there we go. Like, I'm not necessarily like doing full on marketing, but the point is like, I'm actually telling you like, look, yeah, you can go.
It's a personal recommendation from
true. And
you know,
you like, and radio is all about authenticity.
Yeah. That the audience knows and kind of trusts and has the ability to like, because everybody goes home at this a certain time and then they're like, oh no, it's a Sky show, like there's a school show, you know, they and then like, you know, tune in to the same person, like get to know that person. I mean, like I grew up in Pretoria, you know, and it's like, you know, when I was a youngster, it was always, my drive to school was always when Wackhead Simpson did his jokes, you know, his pranks, and it was always like. And then also I saw his face and it's like, that's the guy? Really? But
that's also the interesting thing because you get, you know, like the best part is that nobody actually sees you behind the mic. I can tell you how many times, like even this year alone, like when I have to go into studio to do Cape Town After Dark, I directly came from the gym. So like I have like my tights, I could be maybe a bit more sweaty, my hair could be a mess. I don't have to look good. Nobody's going to see me. Plus it's nighttime radio. It's like, who's going to see me now, you know? And that's like the one nice thing because sometimes you can have a bad day and nobody will know. Yeah. Or you can have a bad hair day or just look terrible. Nobody's going to know. Yeah. As long as, you know, we're having good conversation, we're connecting, we're vibing on air. Yeah. Good.
One thing that I really want to like give big kudos to radio and the entire platform in itself is like, in a former life, I was a musician, right? And I've side note, I've lived many lives, very old. But in a former life, I was a musician. And to us, things only really got real. You know, you put up music on, you know, Apple Music and you put up your music on Spotify and you release a music video. And all of that, but that's you doing it. Right, it's you acknowledging this is good enough to distribute, and whoever listens to it, or maybe you get playlisted. But there was something about like getting a song on the radio that's like, oh shit, we made it.
It's the most exciting thing when people's songs get playlisted.
Yeah,
and when you get to tell them that their songs are playlisted, that's so awesome. Even better when they come into studio as well and you have that interview. I think it's brilliant.
And I think it also leads into a very important question that Brad has.
Oh.
Just around, and you touched on it exactly, around playlisting for, I think particularly for independent musicians. My background was in live events and music, and I manage a band called Hey Imagine. Shout out Hey Imagine.
You guys aren't getting on radio.
No, we're not.
Listen, never say never.
There'd have to be. Yeah.
I'm saying this, that I've never heard.
Yeah,
music.
there's some. We definitely have to make radio edits.
No, you guys will. It's just like, this isn't the way you're gonna get it. While I'm playing.
No, this is not the way. I was just shouting out while I mentioned.
Shout out.
Gotta shout out the boys.
The boys.
But yeah, getting onto radio as an independent musician, and I think, especially in Cape Town, and especially if one doesn't feel like, they fit the commercial bill. I feel like, in my experience, sending stuff, like getting playlisted on radio is so complex, and it seems like generally you have to know a host to get on a playlist. And what do you think that does from a perspective of, whether intentional or not, but gatekeeping around a particular sound and not representing or being able to give exposure to
a wider
variety of
genres and sounds? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's such a complex question. Like, it really is a complex question. I'm like literally trying to think about how to answer this.
How full is the submissions inbox? Because
see, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Because look, there's like, I came from a campus and community station, right? And then I got signed to a commercial station. So I'm still very much adjusting to all of the things. I'm like still learning. And even from like a campus and community perspective to a commercial station, there's a massive difference. Even like to be honest, like I was listening to my logs recently, and this is from campus and community, and great. I can hear myself. I can see, okay, cool. This is how you can improve and everything. And then like, it's a small difference, but then when you listen and like, just from all of my observations on like, oh, I like that. Now it sounds like radio. And then, like I'll listen back and I'm like, wow, there's so many different things, because there's also more people that have like certain positions to fulfill things. Yeah. Like at a campus and community station, maybe the staff could be smaller. Yeah, it depends. It depends on where the stations are at, also respectively, like financially and everything. But there are different people that have different positions, and they are there because they are great at what they do, and they're responsible for that. So as a radio presenter, it again, like I'm still learning, like literally the new talent. So I really speak under correction with what I'm saying. But from like what I understand and from what I perceive, like playlisting, I get it can be difficult, but then also like you're not the only person like sending through your song to be playlisted. There are multiple people. Like even when I was at Hectic 99, I had like this position, and it was a cool internship that I got for like June, with like school winter holidays, right? I got to speak on TV, which was amazing. And I also had like this big role, behind the scenes as well. And then just like looking now and then at like the emails and the inboxes, because as a researcher, I was responsible like for booking guests for the show. And I still remember there was like, at the time, like a very big artist. They were like literally everywhere. You just heard their name everywhere. And they had sent an email maybe like a month ago. And then there wasn't a need to have them in yet. And then when I needed someone and that need kind of came, and they were like, hey, you are coming down. Do you still want to come in? And, like there's that, because there are so many different people. And even like playlisting, there's also like different things that maybe a station might want, or like it also depends on the station, because you get a music station, like it really depends on like what the station is all about, the genres that they want, and you get like genre specific shows. So if it like is like old school jams, then oh, okay, cool. But then again, like the presenter isn't responsible for the playlisting. Like I still get emails for people asking me to playlist their songs, and I'm like, I can't help you with this. Like I do not know how I can get your song playlisted, because I'm not the person responsible for that. There's like also like specific things that maybe a station wants in terms of like, okay, if we're going to play this a song, this is what maybe, a certain standard that it needs to have. But generally, I think that radio isn't a medium that's trying to like hold people back. If anything, like you have presenters and like stations genuinely do want to see new talent. They want to help you grow. Like, for example, you'll even see like Carl Wasey, like he does the top 40. He's amazing.
Shout out to Carl Wasey for
Right?
getting me on radio.
You see, like, but he's just like an example that I think a lot of people would know. Like, he has interviews with artists that aren't necessarily big yet.
Yeah.
Like, I remember he had a chat with someone, and I think I forgot a name, but she wrote a song. It was during lockdown, and it was actually inspired by like her being in a room. So it was like the 4 friends, which were the 4 corners of a room. But you see, like, it's always trying to help, but you can also only do so much, I guess. There's a lot more things that happen, and a lot of people are responsible for different things. So it isn't necessarily like, I think, gatekeeping per se, but just trying to do like the best that they can, because again, like, it's also a medium where like you have a lot of people that are listening, and you kind of want to keep everyone happy at the same time, and try to connect with the people, because it's not like people as the collective. Like, radio is literally about you and I. Like, I'm connecting with you individually, and you may be sitting in the car, you that, you know, is maybe at work right now, but I'm connecting with so many like single individuals that different people want different things. And in terms of like the sound, because I know like you mean like, cause usually when you hear radio, you just hear like bops, commercial songs, and look, I think it also comes down to the person that makes those decisions. Like, I really can't speak on that, because like my role is completely different to the playlisting perspective. But if you like have a specific show, like, and here I'm speaking from like being at campus and community quick, if like I have a show and it was just about like music, then if there's someone that I would like really have wanted, or someone was like asking, hey, can we come through for an interview? And, you know, they're like, you can see that they're serious and like they're ready, and, you know, like they are working really hard towards it, then you're going to put them on, and then they like are who you end up chatting to in that like interview slot. Because a lot of people sometimes like, and just taking this outside of radio, it's the same, like, you can see someone has potential, but sometimes you also just have to work a bit harder to get to that standard. And then, you know, like, you like suddenly start to get recognized a lot more. Like, I, for example, I entered the campus DJ search like when I wasn't meant to do it. I didn't feel like it was in me to do it. I didn't feel ready, and I bombed. Like, I bombed so much. Like, it was horrible. I felt embarrassed for like months, and I felt so insecure about it. I felt so ashamed. And at the time I was like, okay. And then I did it again, and I was like, I think I can do this now. I'm ready. Like, I've been working hard. And then I didn't get it. And I'm not even a bit disappointed. I was really disappointed, because I thought like, oh, okay, I can do it. Like, I should have gotten through the next round. But then when I didn't want to do it the 3rd time, I guess 3 times the charm, I ended up making it into the top 5, and I got this amazing experience. So I think when it comes to like whatever it is that you do, sometimes you don't realize it, but you just have to work harder. There's more things that you have to learn. So it's not necessarily anything personal at the same time. It also depends on like the vibe that you're going for, the sound that you're going for. Because it's the same, like, you have a certain fashion sense, right? If you're going to like, let's just say, you know.
I mean,
Dury's got a hell of a good fashion sense.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. And the shirt even says keep calm.
Just because it's been a long week, and people
Keep
are sending
calm.
me voice notes. So
Needs a reminder.
Yeah, and we're not leaving you on blue tick. Yeah, so I think it's going. And I mean, I'm smiling, and we're all laughing. So your mood should just slightly be elevated, you know. It just comes down to what you want at the end of the day, like the vibe that you want to go for. It's a very complex question, and I don't even feel like I could do it justice. Like, someone that has a lot more experience could have answered that question. But from where I am at this moment, that's like kind of what I think. But I'm sure it will develop a lot more. But I don't think it's necessarily personal.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, you know.
But I get it from from you wanting to send your things out, like you're sending it out to everyone and you want your big break. Like, you want someone to recognize it. And again, I'll use myself as an example. I went through that this year where I wasn't really sure what was going to happen with radio. I was like hoping to get a call, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, when am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? And I didn't get it yet. And then eventually there was like an email. So I was like, oh, this is happening. And I was excited. And I remember like I was beaming, like I had the biggest smile on my face. As if I was like on cloud 9. And then I still remember Neon Dreams came in that like the next day, and I was still beaming, and I was like, hey guys, and we're chatting. And I was like, obviously just saying like, well, this might be our last interview like at MFM. Just so that they know, because I wanted it to be memorable, since I really appreciate like them, and like I loved always chatting to them in studio and just having them around. Like they are really cool. Now we can say shout out to Neon Dreams, you know.
Yeah.
Shout out to Neon Dreams.
Bloody Canadians.
That was not enthusiastic.
No, it was. I just didn't want to. I don't know. My headphones are quiet, so I like can't self-regulate enough. I don't know how loud I'm being. I can see that I'm like flipping when I get excited.
I felt like that was like a Kanye West
No, it was a
shout out. I'm smiling
to
from the
Neon Dreams.
inside. The enthusiasm is on the
I'm
inside.
trying to self-regulate because I've noticed I'm clipping. So
No, that's fine. I can fix it.
I'm trying to make Duri's job of it.
But and I mentioned this like and them specifically because I remember a lot. Like I'm really good at remembering, and I was like the time frame. And then I went like from being on cloud 9 to kind of just going from cloud 9 to like rock bottom in terms of just like how happy I was the Tuesday to like versus the Thursday. Because then I replied and I sent through my things and I was like, oh, this is going to be exciting. This is going to be amazing. And then there was just like silence. And then like, I was like, okay, like how do I pick my mood up from this? And I was looking forward to the weekend, to seeing all of my friends perform at this concert on a Sunday, seeing my friend have like a flat warming and, you know, just spending the weekend in studies. I was looking forward to it. That I just wasn't really present in the moment. And then the Monday I was like, oh, cool, I have to have an attitude change, you know, because if you change your attitude on a lot of things, it just changes the way that you perceive things. And then again, like I felt like I was being humbled tremendously, because also radio is all about just being humble. I think anything you have to do, you just should always be humble. That then eventually like there was contact again. So I was like, all right, yay, this is happening. Awesome. But that like period was just, you know, like was hard.
It was like limbo, like
I was about to say limbo. Wavelength.
Again, shout out. Hey,
see,
man.
now you matching the frequencies
I'm
over here.
We're here. It's
But like I
happening.
said, like it happens. And I forgot why I mentioned this, because I got so into the story now. Do you remember why I mentioned this?
Didn't you? Did you ask
You
the
asked me
question?
something. Someone asked me something and I used me as an example for it.
I really just got engaged at the story.
Yeah, me as well.
I took a lot away from it, but I can't actually remember what prompted it.
Sorry,
Do you find in radio that like the moment you say something like 10 minutes later, or not even 10 minutes, 2 minutes later, you're going to forget about what you said?
No, because I can tell you that I can remember exactly what I'd asked someone in an interview.
Yeah.
If I had to hear something like for 2 seconds, I'd remember exactly that. Like if I, like again, like I've been listening to my logs, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you what I asked Shekinah. I can tell you what I asked Tyler Page. Okay, I didn't recently listen to Will Linley's one, but I can tell you like what I had, because there's a lot of thought that goes behind it. You know, you prepare for it. It's not like, because I'm not going to waste your time.
Yeah.
You're coming in to talk about something that's so important.
Yeah.
It's so disappointing when someone doesn't even know that you have a music video out, but I should know that you have a music video out, you know, like.
I mean, it does help. Like, I assume you have notes out and everything.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, we don't. Because there's a camera and it looks
And it's
like.
because.
And we're having a conversation.
But it's not. But see, radio's also like just a conversation. Like you have like maybe a couple of notes, but you're not going to like script and go word for word. It's just so that you remember like, okay, cool, like this is like the points in case you like maybe lose your train of thought. Because you can look up and then you're like, oh, what was I talking about quickly? You know, like you're like, oh yes, boom. But no, like I always remember. I won't ever forget. I think maybe if it comes to just having a personal conversation with someone and I'm like, my mind's all over the place, because I always love to say I'm a radiant hot mess. I mean, when I came in here, I was a radiant hot mess.
There's a radio pun in there. I can't say it because it's not landing right as I imagine it. But
I came in with a bag that was like full because I have to go and check out a restaurant in a little bit as well. I have to kind of change for that, different top.
the vibes are good.
But the vibes are good. That's what I'm saying. Radiant hot mess. because I can be a hot mess, but I'm still going to smile.
and people need to understand that it's okay to be a hot mess sometimes, because
Naturally.
sometimes like life happens, you know?
Yeah, you've got to be real.
Exactly. You go.
No, I'm not asking a very serious question.
I was gonna prompt your question.
I realized
because
as well,
it
I
also
got
was
deep.
kind of my question.
Oh, so
No, but it was good.
I got deep.
I was really engaged.
No, but it's
Like,
a story that I don't really tell
Yeah.
because I was like, nobody talks about those things. Like
yeah.
you can, and the reason why I was saying this, actually, I think I'm remembering now, was because it, like what I learned out of this whole thing was that you can be really good at something and you can be talented. And because you were talking about the music, I love how I'm remembering now. We're there.
No.
But sometimes it's frustrating and it's hard because you have to wait. And in that moment, for the first time, I realized that you have to wait. And the waiting isn't easy. It's frustrating. It's hard. In a waiting period, you can give up hope. You maybe decide to abandon your dreams. You kind of just like let go.
Go a different direction.
You go, or sometimes, you just keep pushing. And I think it's the people who keep pushing that end up being exactly where they never thought that they would. Because something like people have given me amazing advice, and it's through this lack of advice and my willingness to take it and my willingness to learn that I am where I am now. In addition to like the hard work, because I mean you gotta put in a lot of work and be consistent if you want to get to wherever you want to be in life. But a few things have really like helped me, and one of them was the fact that sometimes you're just not the sound that someone wants at the time, but it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. And radio it's not like a race. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and you have to have the legs for it. And in the very beginning when I started it, like I remember Celeste, and I've said this to Celeste so many times, she had asked me about who I was, like in an interview, and you have to like sell yourself basically. And I said I was hardworking, and she literally said, "That's great that you're saying that you're hardworking, but that's something that I'll see."
Yeah.
And I kind of just stuck because from that moment, I was working hard. And then when I got to Good Hope and we did Cape Town After Dark or somewhere along the line, and she was like, "You see, and you're sitting in front of me right now. Where is everyone else that you started with?" And I'm like, product of hard work and consistency. Because sometimes you can get rejected. And believe me, I take more L's than wins. I just don't think people pick that up because I'm always smiling and I'm sunshiny. But it's like, eventually I just realized that everything that you get a no, like every no that you get, you just really are being redirected into where you need to be. And sometimes some things will take away from what you actually love. So like it's a learning period. And you can submit, but there will be someone. Yeah. Like even Billy Bob Brown, Strange Things. Yeah. Do you guys watch it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not on the most recent season.
Part 2's out today.
Is it out today?
I don't even know what part 2 is. I stopped watching after season 2 because something had to give. I mean, Masters Radio. I needed to graduate. But apparently it's super
now
spooky.
Your Masters is over.
We're slowly getting into watching shows. I mean, I still need to watch like the final, like the last season of Rick and Morty. Like I think I didn't start it yet.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of catching up. So if you have recommendations, like plug me. I'm all for adding it to my list, and when I have time, we'll get there.
Lies but everybody says.
No, I promise. I love watching
that Rick and Morty season.
Right? No. I even started playing The Sims 4 again. I'm vibing with life, guys. I'm getting there. But Billy Bob Brown.
Yeah.
She almost gave up on acting. She had no. And she was literally on the brink of it. And I remember, I told you I remember everything I speak about in here. Mostly. Okay. But I spoke about this. Yeah. And she didn't give up like she was going to. And then she got a break by being on Stranger Things. But she was this close. She contemplated it and then she got a yes. So I think it's really all about just to keep going, because it's like any other thing, like with radio, like radio is where I learned discipline, right? It's where I learned a lot, like more than just radio. But it's like if you put it in any other field, it's the same, like you sending your stuff out, you're sending your CV out, you sending maybe your demo to like a manager or to I don't know, like a record label or anything, like you're hoping to get a yes and then you get rejected or they don't reply. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's like not personal because people see it. Yeah. And then if I'm honest, like there's someone who DM'd me asking me to interview them, and like I'm not really exposing myself, but I've noted it. I just don't need to slot in just yet, but I intend to,
Yeah.
because I see what she's doing
Yeah.
and I want to put you on, but the
Yeah.
timing isn't there yet. So
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out, but I don't want to like say, hey, yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm not ready for you yet, because then you're going to get like have your hopes up and everything. And I don't want to disappoint people.
No,
That's a
understandable.
really cool insider's view on something I heard, and it was very much in the context of, I think it was musicians and,
Yeah, so
but
that's
generally the creative
that's kind
work.
of like my answer to the gatekeeping
Yeah, it was-
of the radio.
It was a really
and the like,
good,
yeah.
coherent answer. But especially in the creative industry and in, or the entertainment industry, the one thing I heard is a way to deal with the volume of no's you'll get in amongst the yeses.
And it's a lot.
A no means not right now.
I know, but it's really hard to grapple with that no. Like, I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful. Like, what the chat is that I've done, what takes quite a couple of people years to do, like with radio. Like, I've done that in 2 years, which is pretty impressive, but I worked really hard. So a lot of the time, sometimes people think, maybe I don't think people think this. It's just like 1 or 2 people. In most cases, people think I'm radiant, I'm lovely, I'm warm. And that's great because I really just want to spread as much love as I can in everything that I do. But then other people would maybe say, oh, she's a bubblehead, or all she does is she just goes out all the time. Or, like she's just always out and about at night. She doesn't really she's just always out and just fun. Like, does she even ever work? Living her best life. But at the end of the day, like going to check out a place for Captain After Dark, for example, is literally work.
Yeah,
I'm
it is
getting
work.
content,
Yeah.
and then I sit 6 hours making a reel for you, and then like 4 hours making those templates for you, in addition to having to do all the other things. But like I'm always like busy with everything. But the point in it too is like, like you also work really hard to be where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people don't realize, and just in anything, if you want to do something, like a friend that I had at the time, he always used to say like, many people like want to be like Elon Musk, but who wants to put in the work that Elon Musk does? Like, are you going to wake up at that certain time? Are you going to schedule your like day? And I think it's just like perspective.
Yeah.
But it can be really hard because when you pursue, especially in the creative industry, you really also need to know like who you are, I feel.
Yeah.
Just from like interacting with all of like different people in different like spaces within the creative industry, there's a lot that you have to take, and you can receive like hate, you can receive meaningful comments. Maybe you don't feel like you are supported enough. Maybe you don't feel like people are recognizing. And it's also the most riskiest career, in my personal opinion, as or whatever it is in the creative industry. And like, like sometimes you want to do it, but you don't necessarily have like the financial backing to do so. Sometimes you get lost and you're just trying to make it. But at some point, some people, for example, even just make songs for hits. They they don't make songs
For themselves.
songs that mean something, a message. And I think at the point and where we're at just in life in general, you need songs that are going to make you feel good, songs that, like recognize you. Because at the end of the day, like music isn't just 3 minutes, like vibes, but like when you listen to that 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes, however long the song is, it kind of just becomes your song. And I just also like developed a lot more respect for a lot of different things just through radio, because you get to meet so many different people, then you learn more about it. So it's not just like this medium. It's not like, I don't think people even realize how much work a videographer does or someone that does like production. You just see cool, boom, boom, boom. And like all the people that are in like that make a movie come together, you just see the actors. Then you're like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. So, oh my gosh, Women Crash Wednesday.
There's hundreds of people. Who've gone
I mean,
into
have you
making
seen?
that happen.
Yeah, like have you seen those credits in a
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah, for every actor, there's 100 casts,
Yeah.
and for every cast, there's 100 extras. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
insane at the scale.
There's just a lot of things that you have to take into account when it comes to
And I
this.
think on what you were talking about, and we'll wrap it up fairly soon, but what you were saying about how people, would see on social media, like you're out, you're doing these things for Captain After Dark,
Yeah.
do you even work? And people not understanding that, like, no, that is work. And yes, and this is something that we've talked about a lot. Yes, it looks like fun. And yes, relative to a lot of work, it is
It is
fun.
fun.
Like, we're not saying, yeah, it's definitely better than being an accountant. I can tell you that for free. But it's still labor, it's still work, and it's still tiring, you know. And just because we're having fun at work doesn't mean that work should be respected any less or understood any less. Just because it also looks fun from where you're standing. But I mean, you'd know, like going to an event or a venue to film it and make something, you're not enjoying it like you would if you were there having a
this is so
jolt.
true. Because like whenever I go out, like my cousin once asked me, Ute, so like when do you put the switch off from like when you're working, like when are you done with radio, when you're done with Captain After Dark? And I just realized I'm never done. My mind is always thinking, I'm like, oh, this is a cool place. Or like, maybe I won't have time to come here again. Like, let's just take a couple of videos so that I have it just in case, you know? And then I'm like, okay, cool. This is life. This is the vibes. And it is, luckily I haven't like received any like negative hate or anything. But I also think sometimes what people should also prepare you for, aside from like the no's, is like you also have to be careful with who you choose to surround yourself with, like the whole waiting period, but also how like your friendships can change. Because like I've had a few friends that aren't my friends anymore, and it's just because sometimes those people don't understand like where you are at, the direction that you're going, or they don't understand like literally I had a friend, we're not friends anymore, because he got upset that I didn't invite him to go with me to a wine farm, but it was work related.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you're not just going to take everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. In hindsight though, like there were other people that he didn't really see me hang out with, but they were there the first time I went.
Okay.
So then the owner said like they can come again. Not that they weren't, some of them weren't like my first choice per se, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like small examples, and I'm just using me as an example to a lot of things, but you learn a lot. So like out of radio, I've learned a whole lot, and I'm very excited to see what happens next and like the future and everything.
Yeah, we're going to do a part 2 when we talk about the stuff that we haven't been able to officially talk about, because that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
I have 2 things for the end of this episode. Just to spice things up, right? I've got a question that might be a little bit more intrusive, and I want to like.
Oh my gosh, I'm like wondering what's this burning question.
I want to start a fight, basically. Like, not really. So the question that I have, right, is just for some backstory for deeper understanding, right? We're sitting on the set of a podcast, right? My entire life revolves around podcasting, basically, right now. That is my work, is podcasting, being a host, being a producer, being a facilitator, editing, publishing, all those things, right? Now, my thing is, right, podcasting is a lot more, I would say, accessible than, not in terms of listenership, radio by miles, right? But accessible to participate in, accessible to make certain conversations heard, more accessible to have a wider variety of guests.
I feel like I know where this question is going.
So I want to just kind of touch on that, and like, should the radio presenters and the podcast presenters, or podcast hosts rather, should we start a war? Because I'm
you're ready. I feel like you're ready to start a war.
just for those hashtag King of Podcast Cape Town. Thank you.
My guy.
Shout out to you. Hey, okay. Fun fact.
Yes.
Brad and I actually spoke about this. What was it? 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I was here like 2 days ago. I feel like I'm kind of, I've been here a lot.
Here a few times.
I was going to say like I'm always here now.
Open door policy.
To be honest, that's something that's a big conversation that a lot of people are actually having, because a podcast is something that's like on the rise, not only in South Africa, globally, and just across the continent as well. It's like a rising form of like communication and engagement. I know it's also a thing about like, okay, cool. So like, where does radio fit in with this? Where does podcasting fit in with radio? Can they like coincide? Do they operate separately? And I think both mediums offer different things, but they can also like work together. So I don't think there's necessarily like a need to.
We're not fighting for the same slice of a pie in a sense.
But like you see, like each thing serves different purposes. Like a podcast is also like where you have like, you know, maybe less restrictions, where you can say a lot more. Like, I mean, you definitely can't swear on radio.
Yeah.
But like,
and do you want to see a magic trick? Fuck.
oh my gosh.
Very well done.
Well done.
It is a good freedom.
Like, you know, like standing ovation. Like, I'm not standing, but you know.
I think like if there ever was this metaphorical war between the radio presenters, the radio presenters would all have like messy hair, still in the gym clothes, and then all the podcast hosts will be sitting there like bottle of brandy in their hands, like smoking a goit, just being like,
Yeah.
I know that someone does have a podcast like that where like they sit down and I think they taste alcohol together.
Yeah.
I think it's whiskey to be exact.
you can do anything.
Yeah, like, that's what that's what people do. But I mean, different forms do different things, you know. But they can work together and they serve different purposes. That's like my
excited to
vibe.
see.
I really enjoyed when you were talking about the radio stuff earlier and linking it back to this and the importance of radio and the role it plays. It's the only communication medium and it's where like podcast and radio have inverse, but I think both still relevant appeals. In that a podcast is you can access anywhere in the world, no matter who you are. You know, with audio and video, you've got so many different ways to consume it. So it's innately accessible, you know, super easily all over the world. Whereas radio, I'll keep the note.
Yeah.
Radio is completely, so it's live and it has to be local to a degree. Obviously, you do have national radio stations and whatever, but it's the one thing that's almost forced to be locally relevant because you've got the limitation of the technology. But within that, I think is its strength is that it is the most like locally relevant and real-time communication medium that you can broadcast that has to be locally relevant. And I think that's why you'll still, you know, listen to radio even over more choice of where you can select exactly what you're going to get. I think the like real-timeness and the local relevance is what keeps, you know, that you can't replicate with podcasts or anything like that, which I just thought was cool.
The note that I wanted to not forget was, you see, radios have websites, radio stations have websites. You know?
As you said that, I was like,
and then like wherever you are in the world too, like you can kind of just stream it. But I get what you're saying, like, because when you go on a streaming thing, wherever your podcast is made available, then people can just easily like, you know, access it or like they'll land up on it. But like for a radio station, you kind of like need to know about the radio station and then you'll be like, oh, you know, I can stream it. But it's amazing how also like because of a website and people just choose to listen to like a respective station, you get listeners from like all over the world actually. Maybe it could be a lot, maybe it couldn't. I mean, I'm not sure. It depends on whoever's listening. But I mean, yeah, I agree.
I think it's the expats as well. Like I know my dad still will listen to online South African radio because again, it's it's locally relevant and it's something that connects him to Cape Town because it's so Cape Townian.
But with podcasts, I feel like you need to know where you're going, like your direction of what the purpose is. Because you don't want to listen to a podcast and people are just like rambling on, like there has to be some sort of purpose. Like you love the conversation, the free flow, the freedom and all of those things. But you know, like you want to know, like if I'm going to listen to this podcast today, like what am I going to get? Real talk? Are we going to like dive and get into deep things? Not just like random, completely like just like hot pieces of conversation.
That is a genre of podcasting.
Really?
See, I didn't know that.
People just shooting shit.
Huh. Yeah, I learned something new today as well.
But again, I think that's still true though, because you know that with that podcast, what you're gonna get is them shooting shit. So that'll be what'll work is that they consistently, without a doubt, every time. That's what you're getting, even though you don't know exactly what the subject matter is.
Like that BFFs pod from like the people in the US, like I don't know if you know it, but it's like on it pops up on TikTok sometimes on my like view page. Like it's this guy that was in the Sway House, like these TikTokers. And I know that if I see it, there's drama. So talk about like the beef, the TikTok, the drama, the breakup. Did they cheat on this? What happened? Ask those questions like, so are you seeing each other again? And you know, like that's what I know.
Spicy
Like,
stuff.
But
spicy
it's
things.
it's the expectation. You know
it's what you expect.
And
we
then
do need to wrap up the pod.
So the last thing is,
I'm like realizing what time is it?
For the wrap up,
There's another question.
What could be very fun is Brad's first going to take a turn in his radio presenter voice
Okay.
to kind of just say
Do the intro.
thank you.
Or are we going to do the outro?
The outro.
Yeah, let's do the outro.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. Share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll have a go at it, and then we can have the pro do it.
Okay,
Do it.
I have to see what you guys do
Do a good
first. I've never
outro.
exited an outro for a podcast.
Just for fun.
Do you want to do like a vocal warm up? Like,
No, we don't need to. If my voice isn't warm at this point, seriously, what the fuck have we been doing?
you just did a magic trick.
Yeah.
Do we clap hands? Are you gonna let me? Are you not care?
Oh,
Nobody's
Ladies
clapping with
and
me.
gentlemen, I want to do like an FMR.
Do it,
like
do
So
it.
number
the-
one, we don't do ladies and gentlemen.
I
Oh,
can,
yes,
I
that
can,
was- that's fine.
you know, I can,
Folks.
I can put a nice radio preset over. So
Okay,
it'll
thanks,
sound like
Dewey.
radio.
Folks, thank you so much for watching this episode or listening to this episode of the CAYACast with the lovely Ute Hermanus. We had a wonderful conversation around radio and communication and politics and all those good things. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in with us this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday evening, same time, same place. Thank you so much. Goodbye. I'm not cut out for radio.
Your
Dewey's
turn.
got a voice as well.
Can I do two?
I kind of wish that this
No,
was.
you
wanna-
have to do one. If I have to do
This
one,
is
you
being
have to do
filmed.
one.
This is being
But
documented.
I want to do an Afrikaans one as well because Afrikaans radio is fun.
Okay. It's fair enough. You can do it.
And folks, that has been the CAYACast, where we had a lovely interview with Ute Hermanus. And as always, share, like, subscribe, and maybe leave a review. Goodbye.
That reminded me of Family Guy.
I know. En welkom op Radio Groot FM, hierso op die banke van Kaya. Ons praat nou en dit was die CAYACast, waar ons het Ute Hermanus op gehad en ons het 'n ongelooflike, wonderlike gesprek gehad met almal hierso. En dit is ek, soos altyd, die Randpelser. Kyk Kaapnaar. Bye bye.
That is
That
so
was
accurate.
really good.
That was so
that was
accurate.
really
That was so accurate. It does sound like that.
Yeah, I'm actually good. I'm
The
actually,
Afrikaans was like amazing.
I know.
The Afrikaans one was good.
Yeah, I can't
Check out
do the Afrikaans
Dude,
version,
that's
you know.
fine. Dude, just do
Do the
a
pro
little
one.
outro. Show us up both.
Do you want to do like a radio version of this outro?
Yeah,
go
just
for
do
it,
like
go
how
for
would
it.
you do
It's the pro.
do the outro on the spot.
This happens every Thursday, same
Every
time,
Thursday, 6
different
PM
time,
ish.
6 p.m.
Yes, we
ish.
try.
Hypothetically, 6 p.m. every Thursday. Call it 6 p.m. every Thursday. We're going to create the expectation.
Now I've got to work harder.
This one's only for next week. Sure.
No,
But
yeah.
is it always the two of you? Because I
No,
always see
no.
different
It's
faces.
different team
That's
members.
everybody.
It's just the cast of Kaya.
Just the
Hence
cast of
Kaya
Kai.
cast.
The Kaya cast. All right. Same, same
And
place, different
it's
faces.
the Kaya cast and fabulous friends of ours in the creative industry.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're looking for some fun entertainment conversation and maybe you want to put a smile on your face, you've had a bad day and you kind of want a 360, then make sure to tune in next Thursday around 6-ish, right?
6-ish.
6-ish. Can't make any promises though, but what I can guarantee is that you'll leave feeling a whole lot better with the CAYACast. There might be a different face or two, but one thing's for sure is that after your first episode, you're going to keep wanting to watch more. So make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.
I'm literally on FM. I've got FM radio in my head right now. That's
That
awesome.
was, yeah,
Okay.
that was done by the
Bye,
professional.
everybody.
Thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next week.